गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. All activity happens only at the matter level. The conscious principle is free of all activity or inactivity. It is the independent principle. And this conscious principle, I am. When this I gets identified with the activity, it becomes the doer, it becomes the enjoyer. Due to this identification, this consciousness starts believing, takes the position of a limited I rather than the infinite I which it essentially is. And all the problems are for this limited I. All the successes, failures, hunger, thirst, comfort, discomfort, joys, sorrows, likes, dislikes, honor, dishonor, at the various personality equipment levels, body, breath, mind, intellect. But this conscious principle, having identified with these 4-5 sheets, starts thinking that it is that. So when the body gets uncomfortable, the I says I am uncomfortable. When there is hunger, the I says I am hungry. When the mind becomes emotional, the I says I am emotional. When some understanding takes place, knowledge takes place, the I says I understood, I am clear. And in this way, it creates a trap for itself. I is essentially independent. I is self-existing. I is self-knowing. Essential I is birthless, deathless, and therefore immortal. And because the nature of I is all that we just said, but when it gets identified with body, breath, mind, intellect, or the world outside, it starts superimposing what it was on what it is identified with. Because of his all-knowing attitude, nature, the individual self, the identified self, wants to know everything in the world. the self being birthless after getting identified with the body, breath, mind, intellect. It wants the body, breath, mind, intellect to continue to live and never die. The self being deathless, the identified self is afraid of death. The self being all-knowing principle, the identified self thinks it is ignorant, it does not know everything. And this way, due to identification, this identified I starts imagining itself to be something less than what it essentially is. And in this imagination is the problem. The whole sadhana is to dissolve this imagination, dissolve this identification. And when the identification is dissolved, what remains is you. Just like a postage stamp, if you pull it away from the envelope where it is stuck, you might tear it. But if you apply water to it, leave it for some time to soak in water, automatically the stamp gets separated from the envelope and it can be reused if it is not stamped. Exactly the same way, the self must not be pulled away from the body, breath, mind, intellect. It must soak so that this separation automatically happens. And what is this soaking? This soaking is in the contemplation of the self. Just like you contemplate on the sleep, and at that time, without your efforts, your identification with the world, your identification with the body, breath, mind, intellect gets separated as you are identified with the sleep. So also on the seat of meditation, we get contemplative on our essential nature. Who am I? Who is this I that I am talking about? And the more we contemplate upon it with deep faith, with sincerity, regularity, automatically the identification with the world and then body, breath, mind, intellect, all this gets dissolved. And when all these are dissolved, there you are. You are that what remains. Only to realize that I did not need to separate myself from anything, because this conscious principle that I am is one without a second. It is pervading the entire universe. There is nothing outside it. Nothing is possible to be outside it. It is inside and out of everything, and that I am, and it is my direct aparoksha experience. In this way, be what you essentially are, and not be that which you never are.